It is July 16th, 1969, and we are all about to witness the fulfillment of that promise that President Kennedy made at Rice University Stadium in Texas on September 12th, 1962.
2 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting. The target for the Apollo 11 astronauts for the moon at liftoff will be at a distance of 218,096 miles away. We're just past the 2-minute mark of the countdown. T-minus 1 minute, 54 seconds, and counting.
These three men are about to embark on certainly one of history's most glorious adventures. Commander Neil Armstrong, Lunar Module pilot Buzz Aldrin, Command Module pilot Mike Collins. To the control center at this time indicate we are go. 1 minute, 25 seconds and counting. Our status board indicates the third stage completely pressurized. 80-second mark has now been passed. We'll go on full internal power at the 50-second mark in the countdown. Guidance system goes on internal at 17 seconds, leading up to the ignition sequence at 8.9 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 2 minutes past the hour.
Contains the lunar module, or LEM, which will weigh more than 32,000 pounds at launch time. The command module serves as a flight operations center and living quarters for the astronauts. After the third stage rocket sends Apollo 11 toward the moon, the onboard service module engine will be used to put the astronauts into lunar orbit and later to return them home to Earth.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
Confirm in the board out. Roger. Guidance flight, how you? We're go flight. Go flight.
Certainly does
Follow
affect your perspective. The Apollo command module had 5 windows in it, and when you're 250,000 miles away from Earth and you look out the window to find it, it's very common to be no Earth in any one of the 5. The Earth is down under you, over your shoulder, somewhere else. So that's a strange sensation to have to maneuver around even to find your home. And then when you see it, tiny as your thumbnail held out in front of you at arm's length, that sort of gets your attention. A beautiful sight, tiny, pristine, blue and white, very fragile looking object, shining like a beautiful little headlight out there in the black velvet of space. It does change your perspective. It makes you think that we have to take better care of this little fragile entity, because it is fragile. I think the space program will always be an area right on the edge of our knowledge, on the edge of our technology, on the frontier of physically and mentally of the things we do. As we get into the 21st century, we're going to see some remarkable advances in our space technology, and it would be a good career to be part of.
Ignition confirmed, thrusters go. Ignition confirmed, thrusters go, 11. Flight.
There's a wonderful sense of liberation, of freedom, of floating, of being one with the whole universe.
Ecom flight, how are you? We're go flight. Yes, sir. We're go flight. Surgeon, how you doing? Guidance converge flight, go. Go. Roger. We're go flight. Good at 10 minutes, Captain. Apollo 11, this is Houston. At 10 minutes, you are go.
You could turn around and come back at many times during the mission. You might have to do that like Apollo 13 before you got a chance to get to the moon. So we figured the chance, just unofficially, the 3 of us on Apollo 1, that it was about 60% that we would be able to successfully land, but 95% that if we weren't able to land, that we would be able to come back safely.
Booster flight, how are you? We're go flight. GNC. We're go flight. Go flight. Guidance, how are you?
This is a new ocean around. This is the new ocean, and we must sail upon it, and we must be a leader on it. And that caught people's imagination. I had become fascinated with the world of flight as an elementary school student, and determined that somehow I wanted to be involved in that. And as I learned more about aviation, I thought design, that would be the epitome of an aeronautical career, to be a designer, and so that's what I strove for.
Looking good. Flight, little noise on raw. All sources agree. We're go. Okay, just standing by for your confirmed. Roger that flight.
When President Kennedy said, May 25th, 1961, I believe that this nation should commit itself before the decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely. He didn't say anything about going outside the spacecraft and walking around on the moon. He said to land a man on the moon and bring him back. Okay, that clearly people in the space business who understand the progression of exploration know that the very most important contribution of Apollo was demonstrating the ability to land on another object.
I never quite understood Apollo 10. No, you get all loaded up, you fly all the way to the moon, you separate the LEM, you go down to 50,000 feet, and you say, oops, no, I don't think I'm going to land. You turn around and go back.
Isaac Asimov, a astronomer, that science fiction writer, he wrote a book on astronomy, and the title of his description of the moon, of Earth, why is it so far away? It's much, much further away from the Earth than all the other moons are in our solar system. And before we went to the moon, there were 3 theories about how the moon was created. They were all wrong. When we came back, it took about 10 years examining the lunar rocks before somebody came up with a theory, and it's now agreed to by almost everyone, that a large object early in the formation, first billion years or so of Earth, a very large object, maybe the size of Mars, even that big, which is about one half the size of Earth, hit the Earth and caused a lot of stuff to splash off, stuff that was at the Earth and was of the body that hit it. And because of that, analyzing those things, they concluded that that's how the moon was formed.
Oh, the noise at liftoff from the pad is extremely loud, and you get not only the noise of the engine, but the reflected noise that's coming up off the ground. And so consequently, until you fly out of that reflection after about 30 seconds, it's very difficult to hear anything, even with our special helmets and earphones and so on. But after you get out of the reflected sound, it gets pretty reasonable. A very shaky ride in that particular rocket, the Saturn V. Saturn V was a 3,000-ton machine, and that's with an energy enough to more than that to lift you off the pad. It's an environment that's interesting. Very shaky ride in the early part of the launch through the first stage. The second and third stages are just as smooth as the first stage is shaky.
All that we have accomplished in space, all that we may accomplish in days and years to come, we stand ready to share for the benefit of all mankind.
As we explore the reaches of space, let us go to the new worlds together, not as new worlds to be conquered, but as a new adventure to be shared.
You know, what about the rendezvous where you have Neil and Buzz on the lunar surface in the LEM, and I'm in an orbit 60 miles above? Something goes wrong. I had around my neck, I had an extra checklist. It's actually a book with, it was around my neck because I didn't want to not have it be right where I knew where it was all the time while they were gone. And in it were about, if I remember correctly, about 18 variations on the rendezvous situation. I was uptight about that. Now, taking that to the extreme case, if they get in an orbit that's so bad that I could not come and rescue them, then I was going home solo. And I mean, they knew that, and I knew that. It was not something we ever talked about. What would have been the point?
Let me say, when I was first assigned to Apollo 11, I came back and told my wife that I would just as soon have been on a later flight so I wouldn't have to go around the world, make all these speeches and everything else. Does that sound like somebody who wants to get the media acclaim of being the first human being out on the surface? No.
After landing, they had no confidence in our ability to get down safely. And of course, the first statement we made was the Eagle has landed. That was the signature line for achieving the presidential goal.
On the flight of Apollo 11, it did everything perfectly. I remember one maneuver, except I should say, I remember one maneuver where it didn't seem to want to complete the turn. And I had to do some additional button punching, which I don't understand why I had to do that to this day. We were about to go behind the moon. The temperature in one of our systems was unhappy. The procedure on page A492 of my checklist would have required me to get down on the floor underneath a bunch of other things, take a panel off, and do some manipulation with pipes. But if you ask me, wasn't I worried? Yes, I was very worried. The whole time I was in flight. To me, going to the moon and coming back is a long and very fragile daisy chain. And so many links in it, and you break one and everything downstream from there is inoperative. You know, you're, let's say, a teenager aspiring to something, and you think, well, I want to fly to the moon. It wasn't that way. As you know, the service, I went to West Point because, well, part of it was my parents had gone to West Point. Part of it was there was a free education. Then when I graduated from West Point, at that time there was no Air Force Academy. So a certain fraction, 20% usually, of West Point's graduating class could go into the Air Force if they agreed and the Air Force agreed and everybody agreed. So, as I say, I came out of an Army family. My father, my brother, my uncle. The problem was, one problem, my uncle was the Army Chief of Staff at that time. And I didn't like, you know, being under that umbrella. This seemed wrong somehow, and also I was interested, had been interested as a kid in airplanes, model airplanes flying. So I went in the Air Force. So step one is to go to West Point. Step two, go in the Air Force. Then I wanted to be a fighter pilot, that's step number 3. I got to do that. I lucked out and got to do that. And then after a few years doing that, which I enjoyed thoroughly, the question was, do you want to fly the same old airplanes over and over, or do you want to fly the new ones? Well, I'll go for the new ones, test pilot school. Then lo and behold, having nothing to do with my long-term aspirations, lo and behold, the space program came along, and guess what? They were looking for test pilots. I said, oh, yeah. Probably shouldn't say this because I don't know if it's absolutely true, but what I gave up probably was being the last guy to walk on the moon, because the normal rotation was I would come off Apollo 11. We had a knit 2 Pearl 1. I came off 11, I'd skip 12 and 13. I'd be the backup commander for 14. Skip 15, 16, I'd be the commander of 17. That was a normal expectation. And I knew that. I hadn't been promised anything, but my boss, Deke Slayton, said, hey, what are you going to do after Apollo 11? And I said, well, if we land successfully and return, that's it, goodbye. If we don't, then I'll come knocking on your door and hope to try again.
Altitude, velocity, light, 8.5 down, 220 feet. 15 forward. 11 forward, coming down nicely, 200 feet. 4.5 down. 5.5 down. 160, 6.5 down. 5.5 down. 9 forward. Good. 20 feet. 100 feet. Green forward, drifting to the right level. Down a half. 30 seconds. Forward drift. Good. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
It's one small step for man. One giant leap for mankind.
It was special and memorable, but it was only instantaneous because there was work to do. Checklists were all over us. We needed to get on with things, and that's why we were there. We were there to meditate. We were there to get things done.
Okay, I'm on the top step. It's a very simple matter to hop down from one step to the next.
You've got 3 more steps and then a long one.
Okay, I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there and both hands down to about the 4th rung up. There you go. Okay, now I think I'll do the same. A little more. About another inch. There, you got it? That's a good step. Beautiful view. You got something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation.
The lunar surface is so warm. It's over the boiling point of water, and substantially. And so the heat of the surface could affect fluids in the systems of the lunar module adversely. We had to be very cognizant of potential thermal problems that might be in existence, and if it was going to get worse, we were going to have to take off immediately and get out of there.
Go ahead, Mr. President. This is Houston out.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you do. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure they too join with the in recognizing what an immense feat this is. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. And as you talk to us from the Sea of Tranquility, it inspires us to redouble our efforts to bring peace and tranquility to Earth. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done, and one in our prayers that you will return safely to Earth.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here representing not only the United States, but men of peace of all nations, and with interest and a curiosity and with a vision for the future. Honor for us to be able to participate here today.
And thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday.
Look forward to that very much, sir.